next up we have Shireen. So if you don't know, this is beautiful Shireen here. She is this region's instructor for the Wim Hof Method. She also owns her own studio down in Houston. And she's a great person. So Shireen actually taught this morning the Wim Hof Method here, fundamentals, and she'll be teaching tomorrow advanced. So Shireen.
So I'm using a mic because if you can notice my voice is already getting a little hoarse because of the amount of screaming and shouting this morning. And I do have different sides. I wear different clothes and different moods come out. So this is my nice mood right now. So hello everyone. First of all, such an incredible, I'm actually so happy you're coming for the workshop tomorrow because I already know what I want to do over the breaks. So I'm like, hey, can you so I'm actually here doing a workshop. I'm very happy to be working here during this time. I've actually become very selective about the people I work with. I love this gym. I love everybody who works here. Good people, and I'm really happy to meet you as well. So I am going to, first things first, this up because I always like to know. Some people I teach and lose track of time, so the way I do it is I make sure I have the watch right in front of my face. So we're going to start off with an exercise. Okay. How many of y'all are aware of what your respiratory rate is? How many of y'all know what the respiratory rate is? Okay. So let's just do a quick check. Okay. It sounds like there are only 3 or 4 people who raised their hands. I'm going to be the one saying start and stop, okay? You guys are going to be doing the breath work, okay? What are you going to do? You're just going to take a normal breath in, normal breath out, and that constitutes 1. Okay, you're going to do it again, that constitutes 2. So you're just going to breathe, keep breathing, keep counting. Every time you take an inhale, you're going to count, and I'm going to time you for 1 minute. When the 1 minute's done, I'm going to tell you to stop, you have your number. Any questions?
Like deep breathing or normal breathing?
Great question. That was not planted. Normal breathing. So how you're breathing right now is pretty much where I want you to continue breathing. Okay, so you definitely don't want to, breathe like no, because that means you shouldn't be breathing like that right now. None of you are, and also the mask probably won't allow you to do that as well. It's another test, okay? So please just keep it as normal. I don't like to use the word normal because normal is just a setting on the washing machine, right? But whatever normal is to you, just breathe that way, okay? Everybody ready? Start. Stop. 1 minute in silence in such a large group is freaking long, isn't it? It's like really long. It's awesome. I love it. Okay, so how many of you are between 0 and 5? Okay, 5 and 10. Okay, 10 and 15. Okay, 15 and 20. Okay, 20 and 25. And was there anyone over 20? There was nobody over 20. That's probably why everyone's here, right? You guys are pretty healthy. Okay. What do you think is the average respiratory rate of the human race at the moment?
At the moment?
Sorry?
12, 14.
12 to 14, okay. Anybody else? 18, okay. Anybody? Everybody's like, there's no doubt, I suck, I'm worse than my ancestors, definitely we're getting worse. Okay, so everybody's kind of sure of it. Okay. So the actual, yeah, you're right, it was, it's 12 to 14 now, okay, is the average respiratory rate, and the average respiratory rate 10 years ago was 10 to 12. What's going on? Anybody has any ideas? What's going on? What? Why? First of all, do you think 10 to 12 and 12 to 14 is a large gap? Is there anybody here who's like, oh my God, that's a really big increase? Yeah? Not sure? Maybe? Kind of? Okay. So that is, it's a pretty large increase. Okay? Why do you think that's happening? What do you think is different today versus 10 years ago?
More stimulation.
More stimulation, okay. What else?
Chronic diseases.
Chronic diseases, okay. What else? Less activity, okay. I love how we are ourselves are like, this is why I suck. This is, more problems. What about stress? What do you think has happened to the levels of stress? Do you think there is a uptake, downtake, constant? It's going up? How about you guys? If you reflect on your own lives, do you feel like as you're growing older, do you feel like the stress levels are getting worse or better?
Worse.
Getting worse? Okay. So, now, okay, we're having this conversation, we all agree, things are not going in the right direction, so on and so forth, okay. What can I do to make a difference? Very simple. I just figured out a way to bring my respiratory rate lower, right? Because we're saying in 10 years, I went up, so all I have to do is get it down, and I'm in a better place. Are we all on the same page? This is not a trick question, by the way. This is actually pretty straightforward, right? So if I can bring you all down to 10 to 12, at least 10 to 12. I had a couple of 20s here, right? I said, if I remember correctly, I said that, is anybody over 20? So there were quite a few people between the 15 and 20 range, okay? So my challenge today is to get you guys to get it lower than whatever your value was. If it's under 10, score. If you are at 20, if I can even get it down to 12 or 14, I think I would like to say that I'd like y'all to clap for me. Okay? This would not like him. I'm like, yeah, I actually want it. Okay. So all I'm going to do is make a simple tweak to your exercise. Okay. Yes.
Just for the audience, is there a negative impact for a higher rate?
Okay. I always teach by asking questions. So when he asks a question, I'm curious. Does anybody? I'm sure all of you think that if you all said that we're going in the wrong direction and you all said higher, there is an impact with our respiratory rate and our health. Are we all on the same page there? Is anyone unsure of that? What do you think the respiratory rate going up means? What could it possibly mean? What is it tied to? I explained this in the workshop today, so nobody else says it. Higher breathing rate means?
A worse cardiovascular system, you're clearly not getting as much oxygen from the lungs to where it needs to go, so you need to get more breath cycles.
So to a 5-year-old, higher breath rate means?
Your blood pressure's harder.
Higher heart rate, thank you. If you have a higher breath rate, are we all on the same page? If I have a higher breath rate, chances are my heart's pumping harder. We all there? Okay. So if that is the case, am I able to change my heart out? Yeah, maybe I can, okay? But forget about cardio surgeons and all of that stuff. Say if I have one little engine here, do I want to be a Subaru engine or do I want to be a Ford engine? If you all have a Ford, I have a Ford too, okay? But just know that it'll probably die in about 150,000 watts, right? But if you have a Subaru engine, it's going to go up to probably about 400,000, 350, 400,000 watts. If you have an engine in your body, would you like it to be a Subaru or a Ford? Subaru, right? If you want it to be a Subaru, yes, change the make. Okay, but in our case, how are we changing the make? It's by defining how many times my heart beats in a minute. If I know that the number of beats I have in my lifetime is limited, would I not want to reduce the number of beats I have per minute so I have a better quality of life in the long run? Is everyone following what I'm saying? Make sense? So to answer his question, you want to have a lower respiratory rate because if you were just to explain this to a 5-year-old, because we don't have 6 hours together, okay? Your breathing rate is tied to your heart rate. If you want your heart to be a super engine, you want to have lesser number of beats a minute. That's it. Okay? It's not that layman's-ish. I'm sure there are a lot of other people who are like, oh, there's a lot more to that. There is. But just remember, okay? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So, let's talk about what tweak can I do to deserve a clap from you guys. Okay? All I'm going to say is we're going to incorporate a pause. That's it. So you're going to inhale, exhale, and then you're going to just pause. So how's it going to look? It's going to be like this. Okay? I also want you to work on taking more time to create a rhythm. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't want it to look like this. No, it should be same inhale, same exhale, same pause, same inhale, same exhale, same pause, again and again and again. Because as we have learned in our life, the more we do the same thing again and again and again, the more it becomes second nature to us. If you keep trying to tweak the way you do things, it's not going to stick. Okay? So I want you to create a rhythm, but I want you to incorporate a pause. Okay? So you might ask me, but Shireen, why am I pausing? Does anybody have a question in their mind? Why am I pausing? I mean, inhale, exhale, no one ever told us to pause. So let me ask you this. Has anybody here had an issue where somehow or the other, their hands seem to be doing this motion a lot, and then suddenly, before you realize, there's food there too, and then there was nowhere else for the food to go, so the food kept going inside your mouth. And you kept eating, and eating, and eating, and then suddenly you realize, oh no, I'm starting to get a belly, and then I've got large thighs and large arms, and getting a little bit overweight. Suddenly this motion stopped, started slowing down a little. Suddenly you realize you don't have to have food in that motion all the time, and suddenly you started asking yourself, am I hungry? Before you start eating. Has anyone had this cycle of weight gain, and then realizing that your self-esteem fell, and then you didn't really feel so good about yourself in that beautiful little mini skirt at Christmas time, or those Speedos when the men were out there on the beach? Hopefully not the mankinis, right? You all know what the mankinis are? Thank God if you all don't. Okay, so if you all are gone through that cycle with food, nobody needed to tell you from an exterior standpoint. When you stand in front of the mirror and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, do I look good today? That was enough motivation for you to not eat as much. What about breath? What's your motivation for breath? You can't really see anything, right? Your breath doesn't make you look good, or does it? Does it? Do you think the way you breathe could actually change the way you look? Is it possible? Well, Chris is my best friend. He's been around me a lot, so he knows the answer to that question, okay? But the reality is, I'm not going to go into a lot of it because I want that clap soon. You want to have your tongue on the roof of your palate. When you place your tongue on the roof of your palate, you actually get higher cheekbones, you get a more rectangular, squarish jawline. You can actually change the way you look, your eyes droop less, and you actually have larger nasal passages, so you have more air going in. So yes, the way you breathe and where you place your tongue in your palate can actually make you look a certain way too. Okay? Thank you. Always, always. Okay, so, yes, it does make an impact. But let's go back to this conversation about what can I do to ensure I'm breathing when I actually need to breathe. Why? Because there's so much air, I have a nose, the air doesn't have anywhere else to go, let's just go ahead and shove it inside the nose. Oh, I mean, the plants, they need air too, let's just keep giving plants air as well. We need to get away from this mentality of shoving air into my nose because it's ever present. There is no external view for me to recognize I'm looking ugly, but now you all know, and you'll see somebody with droopy eyes and, you know, triangular chins and droopy, just don't look at them and say, ha, I know you have shitty breathing habits. Just don't say that to them, but you know, you're now aware that these people probably don't have very good breathing habits, okay? But for all of us good-looking people sitting here, right? For me, it is about the awareness that I need to breathe when my body says it needs a breath. I don't breathe all the time. I'm constantly aware of the amount of breath I'm taking in because my body has not said, Shireen, I need air. I feel a little bit of lack of oxygen or whatever. So coming to that, is it really a lack of oxygen or is it a buildup of carbon dioxide? That's a whole different conversation. We'll get there, okay? But first I want you all to do the exercise. And remember, when you're doing the exercise and after the exercise, I'll go into what I just talked about. I want you to take that pause and only take the breath in when you feel the need to breathe. When you feel not a strong urge, so I don't want to see this, you went too far, okay? But I want you to see a just consistent, got it? Everybody gets the exercise? So we're going to do the same 1 minute, sitting in silence with everybody. I love this exercise, okay? We're going to do it for 1 minute again, okay? I'm going to tell you when to start. And this time, you're going to count inhale, exhale, pause as well. Okay? So inhale, exhale, pause. You want that cycle to look similar and breathe when you feel the urge to breathe. Don't breathe when you're just not sure you need to breathe or not. You just try to understand what that even means for your body. Feeling the urge to breathe. Okay? Go. Stop. Okay, how many of y'all were between 0 and 5? Okay, how many were between 5 and 10? Okay, so almost 90% of the room is below average at the moment. Okay, how many were between 10 and 15? Was there anyone over 10? Okay, guys, I deserve a clap. All you have to do is incorporate a pause in. Okay. And I'm going to leave you all with the last thought before, because I've been going for 22 minutes now. What is the whole aspect of carbon dioxide and oxygen ratio that we're talking about in the body, right? Because in breathing, all of us pay a lot of emphasis to oxygen, right? Carbon dioxide is a waste product, right? Does it sound familiar? Carbon dioxide is a waste product. I am here solely for the plants. You know, we have a symbiotic relationship. I give them oxygen, they give me, I give them carbon dioxide, they give me oxygen. Is that really all carbon dioxide is doing in our bodies? Carbon dioxide is an extremely important gas. Okay, I'm not going to go into all of the details of what carbon dioxide does, but amongst few, I will say that the absorption of oxygen into your cells comes from the level of carbon dioxide in the body. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The absorption of oxygen into your cells comes from the level of carbon dioxide in the body. The trigger to breathe comes from the level of carbon dioxide in the body. The trigger to breathe doesn't come from the level of oxygen, it comes from the level of carbon dioxide in the body. Okay? So if you have asthma, if you have someone who has COPD, if you have anyone who's got allergies, you've got all of these things that are happening with these people, there is a very high possibility, kind of like how Johnny mentioned, it's not always the case, but there is a high possibility that this person is breathing through the mouth. Okay? Why is breathing through the mouth so bad? The surface area of the mouth compared to the surface area of your nose means that the amount of carbon dioxide I'm able to dump out of my body is a lot more when I use my mouth. Okay? So if I wanted to retain a certain amount of carbon dioxide within my body, what should I do? Breathe through my nose. When I breathe through my nose, I'm actually able to regulate the amount, the ratio of oxygen to carbon dioxide within my body. Okay? So if you don't remember anything from what I just said, you know how to bring down your average respiratory rate. All you have to do is incorporate a pause in. You have to take an inhale, exhale, and pause. Over time, you can extend the pause. I can take 1 breath per minute now. All of you can. This is not an impossible feat. When I started, it was in the range of 10, I got it down to 8, got it down to 6, got it down to 4, 2, I'm at 1 now. Okay? All of you can do the same thing. Okay? The more you start extending those pauses out, the more you're able to do it. And the more you create the regime for yourself of doing this exercise once or twice or 3 times in an hour, every other hour, whatever you're wanting to do, your body starts recognizing, yeah, I don't need to breathe all the time. I'm breathing a lot. I want to calm down my breath rate. Okay? So if you don't remember anything else, how to breathe, inhale, exhale, pause, please breathe through your nose. Okay? Thank you. So I guess I have a couple more minutes. Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Have humans started to breathe more through their mouth?
Yes, yes. So, you know, there's a book now called Breathe by James Nestor. If you all have not read it yet, I think it's a good introduction to breath and breathing practices and how it's gotten worse generationally. But that book goes over it. And honestly, it's really interesting how it's not 1 or 2 things. You know, it's so many things. He even brings in orthodontics in. He talks about how orthodontics has also, I don't want to use the word, but kind of made us go backwards in many ways in terms of how our nasal passages have actually gone smaller. So it's not just that, yeah, it was 1 or 2 things, the stress has gone up, you know, this has gone wrong, that has gone wrong. You know, another thing I heard here in a lot of my workshops is people telling me, I breathe through my mouth because my nose is blocked. And I tell them, start breathing through your nose, you will notice it doesn't get blocked as much anymore, right? Because through your nose, you have a lot of things that are happening. So you have filters and your cilia, which is your hairs, that's filtering all of the impurities from entering. It also changes the temperature of the air. The air, do you realize that your body has, I'm sure all of you, did you check the temperature of everybody that came in here?
Yes.
Yes. So your body has a temperature. Especially now during COVID, everybody's aware of that, right? Everybody recognizes that your body has a temperature. So your breath, when it goes in, also has an optimal temperature for optimal absorption. Your nose does that, your mouth does not. Okay? Okay, so your mouth is a secondary, yes, because for any reason if the nose is gone, yeah, we're done, right? But if your mouth should be a backup, not a front up, right? It's one of those things where don't make it your primary option, make it what it's supposed to be, your backup option. Yes, if you're scuba diving, if you're going up in the mountains, it gets really, really hard to breathe. Sometimes you have to use your mouth, absolutely. What ended up happening was, somewhere in our childhood, we realized, wow, I can take in a lot more air through my mouth. And so we got addicted to it, not realizing, like he mentioned, when you start realizing what humans are actually capable of, you'll start realizing that mouth breathing makes the foundation weak. When you go through your nose, you're able to build up your VO2 max, you're able to build up your lungs, you're able to build up your diaphragm, you're able to build up all of it, which mouth breathing doesn't do. So yeah, it's a lot of things. Yes.
We have an Instagram live question. They said, what tips do you have for using this method while running?
Oh, okay. Excellent. I didn't realize people are asking. This is so cool. Hi. So the first thing, it actually goes in the same direction of what I just told. What was your name, sir?
Paige.
Paige. Okay. And that is, most of the time, when we want to do something with more vigor, so we're doing something vigorously, the first thing we do is we move from nose breathing to mouth breathing. Okay? Just look at anything. You want to run, if you start sprinting, you're going to be breathing through your mouth. Okay? What I tell people is, when you're training for an event, so if you're an athlete that's looking to improve, okay, you want to actually reduce the speed and work only with the nose. When you start doing that, you're able to, when the actual event starts, when the event comes, you will start realizing that when you actually want to put in more effort into it, you can, because your VO2 max actually went up. So you're able to actually take in more oxygen with every gulp or gasp of air, if that makes sense. So the more you train with your nose, the more you're able to do more endurance activity at a higher zone versus when you were using your mouth, because you're not working on your foundation. That's one, okay? The second is learn the Wim Hof Method. If you learn the Wim Hof Method, how many of y'all are aware of what the Wim Hof Method is, or heard of it, knows what it is? Okay, so for those of you, maybe you can raise your hand, man. Okay, thank you. So the Wim Hof Method is a way where we've actually biohacked into the body to change the oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio. When we're in the retention period, we go into a state of hypoxia within the cells. Why is this so important? Hypoxia, by the way, just got the Nobel Prize. Three scientists, or doctors, I'm not 100% sure, came up with the study that putting the cells in hypoxia. What is hypoxia? Reduction of oxygen within the cells, okay? Putting the cells in a state of hypoxia actually leads to curing cancer and a lot of things that were in the past tended to be or said to be incurable, okay? So when you are in a state of hypoxia, what does that mean? Cells don't have enough oxygen. Where do you think y'all have been in that situation? Voluntarily. Have you been in the situation voluntarily where?
Mountains.
Mountains. Okay? When you go to mountains, you're doing high altitude training. What does that mean? Your cells are not getting enough oxygen. As a result, your cells become more efficient and you actually end up getting more red blood cells. In today's world, we have a lot of illegal stuff called blood doping happening. And what is it? That they're just putting blood in. That's illegal. This is the legal way of doing it. So if you did the Wim Hof Method, you would actually be able to get this factor as well, and that will also help with running. So two areas. Wim Hof Method, and another one you can look into is called Buteyko or Oxygen Advantage. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions?
I think it's also important, there's a lot of controversy in our field.
With people, and I talk to them a lot about breath, right? But any breath coach will tell you you do not want to see vertical motion in your body. In fact, if you really go deep into it, the lesser motion you see, the better, okay? But it's really hard for all of us to get there. So how we start is that we say we want to feel the motion in the floating ribs of the body. So all of you put your hands right here, okay? And I want you all to breathe into your hands. So I want you to feel a lateral motion, not a horizontal or a frontal or anything like that. Do you all feel that your ribs are actually expanding sideways? Do you all feel that? And please, if I haven't said it enough, please breathe through the nose. Okay? Does everybody feel it? If somebody does not feel it, meet me after this and I'll work on you a little, okay? This is how we say you should be breathing all the time. This is diaphragmatic breathing, okay? There is something called belly breathing. The reason I say please ask your teacher when she's talking about belly breathing, because it can come from two ways. Yes, you can go directly into the belly, or you can actually work on your diaphragm so well that your range of motion of your diaphragm moves about, you said 4 inches, right? 10 centimeters, right? Can go anywhere from 2 to 10 centimeters, and the range of your diaphragmatic movement can cause your belly to pop up. Okay? So as you get really, really good at breathing, you'll start noticing, oh wow, if I really take a deep breath in, I'm going into my diaphragm, but I can feel my movement in my belly as well. Okay? So when you're talking to anybody and they're telling you to breathe in a certain way, dig deeper. Ask them, what exactly do you mean? How should I breathe? Should I breathe through my mouth? Should I breathe through my nose? In the Wim Hof Method, we always say, I don't care which hole you use, just bring it in. There's a reason for that as well. We're working on the ratio of oxygen to carbon dioxide within the body. So for that purpose, it's okay. But it's important whenever somebody tells you, ask them, how should I breathe? And what is the idea? What does it do? If they look at you and they say, just do it. I don't know about that. I don't like that. Aside from Nike's logo, I don't really like it when people tell me just do it. Okay? So, now I will tell you this. Just to add on, sorry, I'm taking a lot of time here, guys. I'll try to wrap up. But what makes the Wim Hof Method and Buteyko so special is that there were various number of experimental work that was done on these methods. Okay, Wim himself got put under a PET scan, did the endotoxin study where they actually injected endotoxin into. If you haven't heard about this guy, look him up. He's super cool. Okay, he just did a lot of things with his body, and he showed through science. This is what is happening in my brain. This is what is happening in my nervous system. This is what is happening in all of these different areas. Okay. A lot of the breathing techniques didn't go through this much rigor. Does that mean that it's not worth it? Has anyone tried Ujjayi breath? Okay. Tell me, what is your experience with Ujjayi breath?
Well, I like the Ujjayi breath, except for the fact that I think it restricts the movement.
Correct.
And there's supposed to be a 1 to 2 ratio that are in the chest, and in the Ujjayi, it's not like that. I think it's actually restricted than
Sure. But tell me how you feel after you do Ujjayi. How do you feel?
I actually don't feel very good because
Okay.
I feel more like I'm lightheaded.
Okay.
Something like that. Like
Okay.
a forced breath.
Okay, excellent. So classic example. Is there anybody here who's tried Ujjayi breath? Does anybody know what Ujjayi breath is? Ujjayi breath is a yoga technique. If you're into yoga, they will tell you to constrict. It's like whispering inside. So it's like, say hello, hello. Everyone say hello, hello, hello. Okay, now say whisper hello, hello, hello. Okay, now whisper inward. Okay, now close your mouth and try the same thing. That's Ujjayi. Okay, you have to constrict it to get it. Okay? Now, the reality is, this technique has changed people's lives. Okay? It is one of the most potent techniques of relaxing the body. You can actually create large inhalations and larger exhalations just by doing this technique. Okay? Now, she just made a comment.
But there's been some studies on that breath, and because the scalings are attached to the diaphragm and the pillars of the diaphragm are attached to the pelvic floor, it's actually weakened the pelvic floor. And people have pelvic floor problems because of doing that breath for so long.
Okay, so you are seeing a classic example of a method that not as many scientific studies as say the Wim Hof Method or the Buteyko. It doesn't. Okay, I'm telling you this right now. If you go up and you look up this breath method, there's not much material. She's talking about maybe 1 or 2 papers, which actually I've not heard of, honestly, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. But there's not a lot of science behind it, okay? As a result, it's more subjective. It goes from person to person. Some people like it, some people don't. That's what makes methods like Buteyko, Wim Hof Method, all of these techniques better because of the science behind it. But let me ask you this, guys. Do you genuinely believe everything you do today is based on science? Do you think the Wim Hof Method and Buteyko started with science? Or do you think they came up with something and then they used science to show that they were onto something? So breath is a very, it's a gray area where you will come across a lot of people who will teach you a lot of different types of techniques. This is why I said Breath by James Nestor is a good book, which he goes into a couple. And you will see that some methods were scientifically proven, some were not. There are methods which I have learned in pranayama, because I'm obviously from India, where I'm doing here, I'm working on different parts of my lungs. The lower part of my lung, middle part of my lung, top part of my lung. Okay? Is this something that I know has been scientifically proven? I don't know. Does it work for me? Absolutely yes. But I have been working with myself for a long period of time, and I can feel the different parts of my lung opening up based on what I'm doing. So at some stage with breath, you have to recognize that there is a lot of material. You have to use judiciously what works for you. So when you're in a class, going back to Scott's question, if you're not sure, if you don't feel good, ask. Ask the teacher, why am I doing what I'm doing? What exactly is it doing within me? If the teacher looks at you and says, I don't know, I've just been doing it, and I don't really know how to answer your question, I will highly recommend you to find a new teacher. That was my answer. Okay?
Real quick break. If you guys want to use the restroom or something really fast, then we have an amazing story about overcoming crazy adversity. I'm super excited to listen to Nora. She's a little nervous, but she's going to do awesome. So real quick break. We're going to mic her up.